when I first started, when I first decided I was going to make YouTube videos on my outboards, I told myself I was always going to have a clean desk and a nice clean background, make it look real professional. Yeah, that lasted for what, 2 videos? Let me clean this up. All right, I picked up this little boy. This is a Yamaga Home tool organizer. Figured I would get it, not to clean up my bench, but so I can get more clutter on my bench. So this is what it's 16 inches across. 16 inches across, which is fine, but what I really would have liked was to see it just a little bit bigger with some stud spacing 16 on center. Because as it sits right now, I can hit one stud, but the other one's going in the drywall. So that's kind of not, I don't know, it's fine, I guess. Anyway, hold your drills and whatnot. This thing is pretty well made, pretty thick metal. And you can see where I plan on putting it. Don't use this handle anyway. Pretty good spot, I think. Perfect. Well, I think that's a pretty good place for them. And later I'll install this one into the corner. I'm trying to think of a better place for it. See, I like that it's got that round hole because I can put my pry pipe in there, my cheater bar. But I don't know how high or how low I want to go with it, so I'll figure it out later. This is a 1960 Johnson 5.5 horsepower outboard with probably low hours. In early August 2022, I went through this engine and got it running again. That means points, coils, water pump, gear case seal kit, carburetor, fuel lines, fuel pump, fuel filter, and then seals and whatnot. So, however, in the interest of science and my bank account, I did not put in an OEM water pump kit. Reason being, when you go to buy a new water pump kit, an OEM one, you're looking at $75. When you look on eBay or Amazon, you suddenly see these water pump kits for $20. They look identical, 20 versus 75. That's a huge difference. I said, you know what? This is the most common question I've ever been asked. Is there anything wrong with those import pumps? My answer has always been probably, but I never put one in. It wasn't worth the cost, time, and effort to do it when you know the OEM one's going to work. Especially on a motor you're selling, you don't want that thing to die on that guy anytime soon and have him knocking at your front door later. So they always get OEM parts, except for this one because I didn't have any future plans of selling it right away. I wanted to see how well and how long that water pump would last for. Now, because I upload to YouTube's, I know when this motor was done and finished was on August 5th, 2022. Video was uploaded August 6th, 2022. So that's when it was done and ready to go. Its first startup was on August 5th. I went to try to take it to the water. Well, let me back up. Started, ran, pumped water, no fine when it was first installed. I took it to the water to put it on my canoe to go puddle around 2 or 3 weeks later, late August 2022. It didn't pump water right away, but it kind of did. Once you started moving and there was a little bit of pressure on this back fin, it would suddenly start pumping water and you were fine. Once it started pumping water, it would idle and pump just fine. But at an idle, purely off idle without being in gear, it could not really pump water, I think because it needed a prime first before it would start flowing. Now, you could be thinking, did you do something wrong? But keep in mind, I've installed 100 of these water pump kits and they've all worked right off the bat until they leave my possession. So I don't think I did anything wrong. So let's just get that out of the way. The problem now is we need all new, well, we need to fix it obviously. So we're going to need a new power head base gasket at least, but I got my laser cutter so I can cut that out. Probably going to need a new cork seal below there, and who knows what we're going to need to replace doing this. So the time and effort is really where the problem is, because I'm doing this job twice now to save that $50. How long did it actually last? 2 startups. Answer is that 2 startups or 1 month. Now, granted, now it is December. yeah, I got things to do. But we're getting to it now. And we're going to take this thing apart and see how bad this is. Now, because I installed a modern fuel pump on this thing, I don't need to cut. Yeah, I'm not going to risk the fitting. Anyway, I can just undo the fuel filler cap, and that disconnects the main line from the lower pan, meaning I don't need to cut and replace the fuel line slash zip tie to hold that on. And because it's not a 6 horsepower, our carb needles don't come through the lower pan, so all of that can stay attached. Same with the recoil, the starter. I also didn't use the original 5.5 horsepower power head hardware. I used the 6 horsepower hardware, which has a reduced head on it, so it doesn't use the standard 3/8 head like this would have used, the 3/8 and 7/16. It uses a 3/8 and then the reduced shape, or the reduced head nuts, which is a 5/16, which will make everything easier for me. I also, I also pre-coated all of the screws with the gasket sealing compound. So in theory, it's going to be a simple matter of unbolting this and lifting it off. The gasket mostly stayed intact, as in most of it's on the power head. If it's going to stick anywhere, I mean, cleaning the power head gasket surface is a little harder because you don't want to hit it with the wire wheel and get any metal shavings in the motor. But getting on the bottom, it's harder to get to, so there's no winning. This thing is really stuck on here though. Looks like our lower crankcase seal held up pretty well. Looks like it's got about 15 minutes of use on it. O-ring, still nice and O-ringing. And spring and seats, let's get those out of there so we don't lose them. Those off to the side. I need to get those nuts off, which is fun with the 5.5s because that is how you do these things. Okay, well, what are you doing? Why are you stuck? Water tube is just a little tight. Well, no obvious issues so far. The water tube being that stuck to require a pry bar is a little odd on something this new. Usually they, slide right out. After a couple of years, that rubber firms up, sure, but not right away. You can see my sealing compound between the pump and the base there, mostly. No cracks. Nothing obvious. It looks like a brand new water pump still. This is a copper water pump tube off who knows what. Let's put that in there. This is a bucket of water, and this is our lower. Now, where's my drill? Oh, that's right, I'm organized now. This drill has more speed but less torque, but it should still work. Now we get a little bit of water coming out of there. Why do I have my gloves on? So you can see the flow there. Okay, let's get this water pump off and see what we're dealing with. All right. Pump looks fine, free of debris. Pump's all there. Propeller key is still in place. Wear plate Looks perfectly fine. Looks like we got some mucus coming through the relief hole here. That's a little odd. That sealant sure does work. Now these deposits here of powdery stuff is pretty odd, because this is a freshwater motor. Well, at least I used it in freshwater, so I don't know why we would have these calcium buildup already. That's weird. Otherwise, every part in here looks like it was doing its job just fine. So far. Let's pull the impeller pump out of there. And I mean, it's deformed a little bit, which may or may not have, maybe shouldn't have happened that quickly. But for the most part, it's still a pliable pump. We compare it. We can compare it. This is the new one compared to this probably 5 or 10-year-old old used one. It's pretty much identical. They're both equally springy. Well, we do have some wear folds on the impeller back already, but it's not cracking yet. I don't know. It's odd, you know? All right, plate has been cleaned up. I have a new gasket ready to go on. I forgot to clean this side. Ignore that. All right, MarineEngine.com has sent me some new parts. Well, I paid for them. They didn't give them to me, but I bought some new parts from MarineEngine.com. Reason being, as I've said previously, I like to buy parts from whatever website or company supplied me with the information to purchase the parts. The replacement or updated water pump kit does not list the impeller part number. However, MarineEngine.com, when you look at the new replacement water pump kit, it gives you the part number for the impeller. So that's why I got it from them. I have an old used updated part or updated water pump kit, which is a plastic housing instead of metal. I'm going to be using that because obviously I love doing these jobs numerous times. I forgot what here. That's a thermostat gasket. That's the water pump key. That's what I was looking for. Ooh, does this fit over the... Yeah, it'll fit. Now, last time I installed this, I commented to myself of how odd it was, how easily it went in. And this one isn't sliding in as easily. However, if you noticed it, I needed pliers to get it out. I didn't need pliers to put it in. I used my hands. So that was the first thing I noticed. I thought for sure our key wasn't going to be in there. Actually, it was. All right, I have cleaned up the wear plate on the wire wheel. I don't know what the factory puts on here, if this is some kind of anti-fouling paint or if that's some kind of built-in sealer. Don't know, but either way I cleaned up the perimeter where it's going to be sealing. I just need to remember which side goes up and down. Okay, I have a new water pump plate gasket for the updated water pump kit. The steel water pump or aluminum water pump housing kits do not need this gasket, but the plastic ones do. So, I mean, there's plenty of people out there that have done pullers on this, sure, but they stick with the OEM original pump, not buying the updated plastic version of it, which is perfectly fine. As long as the pump housing is in good shape, keep going. But they do have this updated design, which is plastic. Perhaps it was cheaper or it was better. Don't know. They don't share their design secrets. I'm sure they would if you asked. Put some new grease. Didn't clean out the sand from inside the grommet, just grease. Let's go throw it in some water and see what it does. Oops. All right. Now you can see right there. And that's what I was expecting. Let's get you a better view. Probably need to go up higher than that. That should do it. No, can't get the full stream in there either. Hold on. Yeah, that should do it right there. So here is the OEM. Now here's the aftermarket. Now which water pump do you want to use? Keep in mind, this is a used pump with a used wear plate and a used liner. The only thing that's new in here now is the gasket, but you need that. The impeller and the pin. So half used, half new. And far outperforms that aftermarket one. Now, in my opinion, is this a good test? Well, no, it could be better. Looking back, what I should have done was recorded what the water pressure looked like coming out of that tube with the drill before, while the aftermarket was still new, before I put it in or used it, and then compared. Also, what I should do is use this new OEM water pump, start it right now, go use it for less than an hour, let it sit for a little while, and then take it apart again and compare the results. So some comparison would really be needed. And also, you can't just do it once because, maybe you got a bad pump, so you would need to buy a couple of these aftermarket pumps to really get a good test. Is it possible I got a bad one? Yes. Do I personally believe that's the case? No. I believe that they are all cheaply made. I think they are made with the lowest possible concern towards quality components. The rubber they use, they probably source from the absolute cheapest place. Perhaps older rubber that is about to expire that can't be used elsewhere is what they're using because it's cheaper. I think, okay, well, obviously these things are imported, and I don't want to be mean or assume here, but I mean, come on, they're probably imported out of China. And they're probably made as cheaply as they possibly can. Now, you see a lot of, marine companies when you search for a water pump kit. TWC Marine, JAT Marine, whatever it is. And they all have the water pump and they're all about the same price. All they're doing is going into a Chinese manufacturer saying, I want this pump, how much for how many? They import them, rack up the price, and sell them to you. That marine company isn't making them themselves. They're importing them. There's no doubt about it. A lot of these people even use the same pictures that they get from the supplier because they're too lazy to make their own. Or they're doing some kind of drop shipping where they're getting it off AliExpress or some other website to where they've never actually seen the product, therefore they can't make their own picture. And they're paying, you know, $4 for it, charging you $25. So even if they get a return, they don't care. They'll get a return, they'll get it home, throw it away, send your money back. So they lost out on a couple of dollars, but they've made so much more in the long run, it all makes up for it. You know what I mean? Now, I'm sure the OEM pumps, I'm sure they're made elsewhere as well. I'm sure they go to different places and have different bids on it, but I think they're still made to different standards using, you know, spec rubber. Like, you need to use this type of rubber that's this old or less. Hopefully that there's been some downfall in the quality of OEM parts. I really hope that doesn't continue, because obviously this aftermarket pump here, it didn't work out too well. I guess what I'm saying is hopefully some random manufacturer doesn't go to BRP and say, hey, we can make your water pump kits for this much, and they'll say, oh, that's better than what we're paying now. Cool. Hopefully they continue with whatever path. Okay, well, not continue with whatever path, because we all know we can't get no breaker points anymore. Hopefully they continue on a decent beat. Wait, you know what I should do? I should put the screws on the shift rod first. That would help. That's a good idea. You know where your concern should lie? With outboard flippers. Now, I have a little trick that I do when I'm buying a motor from somebody. Oh yeah, I fixed it up. So I fixed it up is firstly my concern, because what did you do to it? Let's see how many wires are cut and how many holes are forced in with metric screws. But they say, oh, it's got a new water pump. As a curious buyer, I say, oh, really? Where'd you buy the water pump? Now, that's my trick question, because they don't know I do what I'm doing. Not that I know what I'm doing. So they say, oh, just eBay or Amazon. Yeah, that's I know right off the bat they didn't buy an OEM one then. I mean, chances are they didn't buy an OEM one, and that thing's going to need a water pump. And at that point, who knows what other kind of cheap components they have inside of there. But if they say, oh, I got it from the boat shop, or if I got it, boats.net or whatever, and oh, okay, probably an OEM. But eBay or Amazon answer, And you can't go and ask them like, oh, did you buy an OEM one? Because the answer is going to be, yeah. Now, they're not necessarily lying. Some people see on the listing. Well, the listings are confusing, first of all. They'll say like OEM and then the part number, but they're not telling you it's an aftermarket. So they may be, ignorant to the fact that that's not OEM, or they could dang well know, but since it says, made to OEM specifications, they'll be like, oh, same thing, when it's not, as we've seen. Come on, motor, get on there. What's wrong with you? Now, to be clear, I don't really care if they say they put an OEM water pump in it or not. Either way, I'm buying it because when I get home, I'm going through it anyway. So it doesn't really make a difference to me. But I just like to know. Now, I understand I've just been complaining about aftermarket parts, and this is coming from the guy that just installed a homemade powerhead gasket. The irony isn't lost on me, believe me. Well, it's all back together. So it should still run. Let's go find out. And we are once again pumping water. The timing, I just checked on this thing because it's running weird. It is way off. But good enough to run and show you it's pumping water. I don't like making 25-minute videos and uploading them, but this is something I think we need to do. This is a 77 6 horsepower. I fixed it in September of 2021, so it's got well over a year of time on it. The water pump kit was a new old stock water pump kit, which was way too old and I shouldn't have installed it, but I did, and it's been working fine ever since. So I'm going to take the lower off and we'll do a comparison of a well-used 1+ year old OEM water pump. All right, pump is in the water. Tube is attached. Market. OEM. Market. That thing pumped water a good foot and a half past my drill. Good pump. Now I think we can close the case on this one. After a year of use on this engine, the OEM pump, even as old as it was when I installed it, still puts out more water and more pressure than a aftermarket pump. Could I have gotten a bad one, or could there be a different seller that sells better ones? Possibly. This has been my experience thus far. In my conclusion, a new OEM impeller only is better than a complete aftermarket kit. To be clear, there is a difference between Sierra aftermarket and the cheap import pumps you see all over eBay and Amazon. I'll probably test the Sierra next. But the cheap import pumps, that's what we were dealing with on my little test here. So you have the information, do with it what you will. And as always, have a good one. See you next time, later, whatever.